You are a cancer survivor. Let's talk about that because I heard the story a zillion times. However, it's always refreshing and by all means encouraging to hear it again. And we'll dive into everything else afterwards.
Respect. Well, all right. Well, for me, it was what was it, 2001. Survivor. We're going on 20 years now, and it's just one of those things. One of those things where you were just one day I was just coming down with what seemed to be the flu. To be quite honest, that's just where it started. Just woke up one day and felt like I was just coming down with the flu. And, as a man, I just wasn't interested in going into the doctor, things of that nature. It took me about a week to finally just be like, all right, I'm gonna go. And when I did, it was, they didn't find anything wrong until they took blood. And then that's kind of when everything connected. And at that point, they basically told me I had like about a week to live before the leukemia. They diagnosed me with leukemia. And told me I had about a week. So I immediately, within 48 hours, had to leave where I was, which was North Carolina at the time, and move back to New York to start my treatment. My treatment started during 9/11. So that was my journey with that. The time that my chemo started, the planes were hitting the building. And I was in the hospital and all that stuff. So after taking about a year of medicine, it was it was hurting me. It was negatively affecting me more than it was helping me. And so I just started to just tap into just alternative methods, started doing some research and just looking online and trying to find other ways to heal. And that's when my journey started, just removing medicine and just replacing it with natural things and natural walks. So for me, I haven't been to the doctor. They gave me a week to live. I've had about 4 to 5 different situations where they were just telling me it was a wrap. It was a very cruel process. It was just doctors in white coats every morning waking me up at 6:30 telling me I'm just not going to make it. And I'm just not one of those people that's just going to sit there and allow you to just feed that into me. So something just clicked and was like, let's just reject that. And that was just the beginning of my journey. So I was 112 pounds, left to pretty much die. And now I'm 180, 170, just all natural, work out, eat clean. It's not a perfect journey, but I'm here.
Yeah. So what was your within that journey, within that process, what were some of the things? Was it mostly were you doing a lot of reading, or what were some of the methods or formulas that you began to implement to help you was it more of an experimentation, or was this an actual sort of practice that you had known about and that you implemented to kind of get you on the journey?
Well, at the time, it was an experiment for me because I didn't know that it was actually a process. It's actually an innate process. When you look at the origin of our people, depending on how deep you want to go back, you look at the origin of our people, this is what we did. We relied on nature to heal us. Everything was within the earth, within the ground. So I started to just tap into those things. And that was kind of like an experiment for me because I didn't really understand where it was coming from. So I just knew that, hey, this is natural. And it says that you can take this and it's 20 times stronger than chemo. We're talking about soursop. So I would implement those things. I looked up apricot seeds. I looked up, first of all, you have to take control of your body. And all of these Western medicines that they pump it into you with chemicals. And it doesn't know the difference between bad and good. So the chemotherapy that was giving me, it took everything out of me. So taking everything out of my system opened me up to any and everything. So if anyone who walked by me and let's say they had just the slightest cold, I would catch it. And my immune system was just that low. So I just started to implement natural things. One was to just come off the medicine. They had me so connected to pain medicine that I became addicted. I was on about 20 different pain meds, and it was I became addicted. And when I asked how do you get off, he basically told me that you don't. He said they would have to take me down a slight amount on each pill over a period of time. So basically you're on it forever. But this was coming with side effects. And I was just one of those was just like, all right, write the prescription. And then I went home and I just threw everything away. I just had to make a decision. Do I want to continue this path, or do I want to just fight through it and figure it out and tap into what else is out there? And that was my decision. So I sat down with the fam, and I remember calling my grandmother and saying, and at the time I was Christian mindset, full Christian mindset. And I remember calling my grandmother and saying, if you believe God healed you, what do you do? And she says, you just walk and you don't look back. And I said, all right, well, I have an announcement to make. So I started telling everybody, like, I'm walking away from medicine. I'm done. I'm just going to figure it out, and started doing everything. So green tea was the first thing for me. Green tea at the time was the very first thing. It was new. It wasn't really here in the States yet. I was reading about like a nurse in Canada who was giving it to patients, cancer patients. So I reached out to family who I knew in Canada, and I was having green tea and Powerade, which wasn't this Kool-Aid substance we drink now. It was a little bit more, maybe a little bit more beneficial for me at the time, I guess, but Powerade and just a multivitamin. So stripping my body of those things. I remember reading in the Bible that hyssop cleans your blood. So I would buy that. I went looking for that, and I was taking that. It was drops, kind of make me a little drowsy, but it was cleaning my blood of all of the, impurities, all of that bad medicine. And I remember walking one day when I moved after I was in New York and I made the decision that I wanted to stop. I moved to Georgia, and they did me this transfer and said I can go to Emory, to finish my treatment. That's the second best hospital. So I linked with the doctor there, and then that's when I did all my canceling of everything. And then I remember walking into a health food shop looking for the hyssop. And the guy behind the counter, like I always tell this story, but the guy behind the counter, like when I walked in, was like glowing to me. You know what I mean? I'm like kind of walking real slow. I had IV still all in me, you know what I mean? Because I had to make a decision as well. Like I had to stop the medicine because I had to get to work. So when you get sick, they take their time to pay you. They want you to prove that you're dying in order to be paid. And, it's a fight sometimes for this money. And when they release it, they don't give you nowhere near enough to survive. I had 2 kids and a wife at the time. And they were giving me about $1,300. And the medicine alone was taking $800 of that. So what was I supposed to do? So again, I started going to work early, throwing up on my routes, things of that nature. So when I walked into this shop, I remember looking up and the guy glowing, and I just walked over to him. And I was like, look, I don't mean no disrespect, but you look alive. You know what I'm saying? Like you look healthy, vibrant, you know what I mean? And I was like, what is this stuff? You see all sorts of things. This is natural this, natural that. I was like, what is this stuff? And he had people in the store, so I was kind of timid because I was like, small, and I was kind of, still weak. But when people kind of went out the store, I just like, look, I don't even normally do this, but something's telling me to tell you my story. So I started telling him what I'm going through, and the leukemia, and this and that. He just looked me in my eye. He's like, turn around. And he was like, go and grab that bottle. Then he was like, go, how do you feel in the daytime when you're trying to work? And I was telling him this. He says, go and grab that bottle. And then he said, go and grab this bottle over there. So I bring the bottles to the counter. First bottle was all natural. It was just a detox. The detox is things that I remember my family always referenced into growing up, because my family's Caribbean. So you talk about like neem and yellow burdock root and like ginger root, and all these things are all just mixed together, and a whole bunch of other things. And it tastes terrible, but it strips everything inside you. So he said, I want you to take this. And then he gave me a multivitamin, all natural, gave me natural energy, started to fill me back up. When I started going to the doctor and getting checkups, they started telling me I was fine, but they were under the impression that I was taking their stuff. So when I kick back and would tell them that I'm not taking their stuff, then it was, I'm no longer fine, because they don't know what I'm doing. So for some people that scares them, and the doctor's able to scare you back in to say, hey, don't take that stuff. You don't know where it comes from. For me, I looked at it as, you obviously don't know that there's more than one way to do this. So then I just started realizing that I can reject that and walk away. So I took these natural things, I started to build, I started to research. And then from there on, it led me to Dr. Sebi, running into research on Dr. Sebi and this walk that he was doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I remember, looking at his thing, and I remember referencing back in the days with something with Left Eye and, curing her when she went to Honduras. So that gave me a connection there. So I started reading on him and honestly just kind of adapted that lifestyle heavily into myself and into my family and those around me that I connect with. And not to say I take everything he does word for word, but I've adapted it and put in my own flavor with it. And we live this life. We're here.
How long did the process take in terms of if you had to give sort of a timeline between the day that you met the individual at the store who pretty much had that vibrancy from when you started to take it from the doctors to you in some ways officially being cancer free? When you put it together, how long was that process or how long was the timeline itself?
Well, I was initially cancer free from the first round of chemo they gave me.
Okay.
Once it wiped out, I was what they call remission. They would never say like cancer free. Even when I was in remission, it was like, well, you're healed, but we're still going to give you medicine because it can still come back within the next amount of years. Even when I walked away, they said, you can walk away, but it still can come back within the next 5 years.
Right.
20 years later. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, so I mean, but I was in remission from the first dose. So my thing was, if I'm in remission, I'm considered clean, then I don't need your medicine. I just need to heal my body. It was a restart for me. I spent a lot of years being angry, and questioning like why. But as I got more mature about the situation and understanding, it was an opportunity for me to do what I'm doing now, have more control of my health, my life. You know what I mean? So that's why you might see me diminish on saying fuck cancer as much, because it was like I say fuck chemo and the medicine, but cancer was a wake-up call for me. Like, I think it actually saved my life.
So when you translate that over to the mental aspect, and looking at how that evolved, from the remission to you in some ways thinking about the process itself, the minerals, the overall take, the things that you had to go through. How did the mental health or the advocacy for mental health play a part in that over time?
Because it fucked me up. The whole process, it was terrible. Like, and you have to be accepting of that so you can understand it, so you could deal with it. Yeah. And it took me years, but you have to deal with pride. You have to deal with being a man, having a family, having a wife, and not being able to take care of them. Yeah. You know what I mean? You got to look at it from that. And then even someone who come up, and I'm used to being able to defend myself and fight, but I was weak. I mean, at that point, like, you could tap me. It was a problem. I was done. I was weak. I couldn't do push-ups. I couldn't do anything. They told me I would never walk again. I would never have kids again. I would never be able to do anything again. My legs would never work again. So I had to fight all that and show them the opposite. They told me at the time that I went in, I had 2 kids. I had 2 more after that. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? So I had to take control of that. But mentally, it was terrible and still has effects on me. But now I understand how to kind of deflect it off and handle it. But it's a terrible process.
So you took that process in terms of, establishing or taking care more of your mental health. Let's talk about that in terms of, as we as a people get older, as we continue to explore and really accept the fact that a lot of people are hurting mentally, whether it be some form of bipolar, whether it be ADHD, whether it be schizophrenia, these things are now relevant, and they are also in some ways aggressive. So let's talk about when you had sort of come to that place of peace as well as understanding in terms of what that looks like. How did you take hold of it? What's the message that you continue to give day in and day out on the level of mental health?
It took me a long time to kind of get a hold of it. There's a serious stigma on Black men, on the Black community, period, where you can't really accept the fact that you have an issue. You know what I mean? It was a lot of pride involved. So it took a self process of me having to strip my pride, check my ego, and then open my eyes. Like, I was really, really down. I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't going outside. Events, Kanata held it down when it came to Hip Hop Gives Back. You know what I mean? Like, he balanced that out more so than anything when I was going through those periods, because for me, I was all over the place. Yeah, I'm coming, and I just won't show up. Because I couldn't control it. I didn't feel like being out in the public. I couldn't engage. So I remember, and I'm working hard. I'm just working. That's how I cover things up. I just work. So I'm doing hours, and drinking Red Bulls. It was real unhealthy. And I think one day I passed out, and my oldest son had to pick me up. I was supposed to be going to an event. Just finished coming from the barber. Got home to get dressed. Passed out on the floor. Then I woke up, my son had me on the bed, and I was being tended to. And I think I started going back to work doing 90 hours a week. And that was the year that I flipped my car over. I made it all the way home and I fell asleep right in front of my house and hit the fire hydrant and flipped over. But just had bought the car 2 days before.
So what cause of the burnout? Was it mostly just was it high blood pressure? Was it pretty much exhaustion? What did you go back to the doctor for that? Or what did they say? I mean, because you already come with admission, you didn't go to the doctor, of course. Okay. So
I haven't been to a doctor since I left in 2001.
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't deal with doctors at all. Now I'll say I may have a physical, just an overall check, occasional, very, very spread out for myself to know. But I know my body, and I get in tune with your body on that level is not really necessary, in my opinion. So, but for me, that time though, when after the accident, that's when I realized that I was depressed. It was just too much for me. And I remember sending a message to a few people, and I got 2 responses. One was someone who told me that they needed me, and they almost, I saved them from taking their lives 2 days earlier from a post. I won't put them out there. But then the other person responded and said, it was about time. He was like, I knew you had an issue and I just wanted you to reach out. And what that did was spark AOD Village, because I felt like, okay, well, that whole stigma where they say we can't talk about it. Black men will tell you shut up or get over it. That's trash.
Yep.
This brother showed me that, he'll listen. And that made me feel a way. That made me feel like, well, I can make other people feel this way. And that was where AOD came in and started doing the male groups, and we talk and we get expressive and we talk about our feelings and things like that. And that's just been a success for the last, 3 years. And that brother was Kanata. So, yeah.
Yeah, man. Shout out to DJ Nas, man. We know everybody know DJ Nas, man. Real good brother. Always been down, stayed down, and gonna continue to be down. Now, when you take your journey and look at how everything evolved, especially from the mental health standpoint, what is the message that you give most men and young boys, believe it or not, that have where you can kind of see that same sense of pride as well as non-disclosure approach in terms of what they're going through, what they may be feeling? What's the message you normally give them?
Accept it and acknowledge it. Just acknowledge it. It's okay. The whole thing, the whole walk of it is that it's okay. Like it's just acknowledge it. You need help. You need assistance. You need somebody to talk to. And a lot of times when these men and even some of the young men that come into the group, it's like all they needed was to be able to let it out and not feel like it's a problem. You understand? Like a lot of times we're holding so much. That's why we react. We don't know how to if you're suppressing everything, about time you're just stacking. Where do you think these statements come where it was like one more needle on a haystack, or that the straw broke the camel's back? It's just suppression of all of our stresses, man. Yeah. So sometimes we blow up from the smallest things, but if we just have a lot on our shoulders. So if we're giving them a safe haven where they can come and just express their feelings, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't change the fact that you're a man or a young man. It doesn't make you less of a man. It doesn't make you a punk or soft or whatever the case may be. I want people to understand you don't have to live under these social restrictions. It doesn't define you.
And now another thing that you always tied your walk within the area of hip hop. You know what I'm saying? You always found that way to bring it full circle with hip hop. Of course, you're an East Coast guy. Shout out to all my folks in NYC, all the boroughs. You always found a way to tie it into the hip hop genre in terms of how to deflect the positive image, the art, the freedom, the expression. Let's talk about that. How does that continue to be a message of yours? How you tie it all together as far as mental health, as far as just putting the right things in your body and the art as well as the medicine that's called hip hop.
Yeah, like music is healing. Music is healing. You could tie that in back to our ancestors. The vibrations from sound. They play music all the time. It's healing. Look at how controlling it is. And you use music to set tones. You want to get in the mood, you put on R&B, you feeling, with your family, they put on the lively music. You go to church, they have gospel music. You set tones with music. And the people who's telling our stories, that's what those are. That's stories. So what I do with that, with what we do with If My Life Was a Verse for AOD Village, one segment that we have is where people listen to the song, find a song, and pull out the bars that are expressing the same feeling as you. So what I post every day is I hear music and I hear rappers that saying something. I'm like, yeah, I feel like that too. And let me show you how we take that and we make that a positive. And then you start to think about how did this track make you feel? How did those bars make you feel? Do you still feel that same way? What can you do to change that view? So music is just healing, man. So it's just something that you're always going to see from us.
And look at what we're dealing with right now. Social injustices, the pandemic, all other areas of stress and feeling under duress, as well as paranoia, that definitely has a mental effect and impact on anybody, but especially people of color and minorities. What will be some of the things that you would recommend to say, once again, not just mentally, but also physically, things we need to focus in on and continue to remember as we go throughout our journey?
One, I would tell everyone to start with a detox. And not just, I'm not talking the over the counter, like really getting deep into a real natural detox is going to go through your whole system and flush of all the chemicals. And you have to watch your diet. This is a lifestyle. I can't revert back to the old paths of things that I used to eat. So, you start to adapt, more fruits, more vegetables, definitely more water. A lot of people eat meat still, these are things that are toxins that are filling our bodies. So I'm going to just keep it real. Soda, the junk food, those are things we got to stay away from. In terms of like with the corona, it's keeping clean. You have certain supplements that we take. And this is not saying that any of these things are to cure anything. This is a lifestyle we walk to keep us preventative. We know that if we do these things, it keeps our systems and immune systems at a level where we don't have worries in that matter, so to speak. We take the precautions just to eat right, because that's what it is right now. I don't have to no longer sit here and try to tell people anything opposite of, listen, you're eating wrong, and you know this already. So eat better. Working out is important. You don't need a gym. You don't need a gym. You can use, there's band systems, just overall push-ups, running, jogging, get bars, pull-up bars that you put on the door. I'm talking for men, for anything. There's all sorts of ways to get exercise in, but exercise is crucial. Yep. It's crucial. You have to keep your body moving. Jump and rope. These are things I post, and I say that I do this every morning. Jump and rope, all that to get your heart rate going. And make time for that. No excuses. Make time to work your body up.
Definitely, man. He goes by the name of Mike D. You may know him, or we know him, of course, as president of Hip Hop Gives Back, but of course, a mental health advocate, a cancer survivor, and also host of Change the Narrative. He has his own podcast out right now, webcast out, that he's definitely helping brothers and sisters to stay alert, but most importantly, to stay in the know in terms of what's going on toward the culture, toward the nature, and toward the advancement of our people. Give us some final thoughts, man. So much more we got to cover. I want to cover, but I know give me some things that we can just take away and how we can stay in contact with you.
Keep up with me on social media at Mr_If My Life Was a Verse. Follow on AOD Village on all platforms. Advice, really, I just want people to find your truth. I can't state that enough. Like, find your truth and walk in it. It's going to be an uncomfortable ride. It's going to be a very uncomfortable ride. Sometimes it's going to feel like you're lonely because people are going to look at you like they don't understand, but find your truth and don't be afraid to walk in it. And no is a powerful word. Use it and mean it and be okay with it. Learn to protect yourself. I'm a strong advocate for making sure that we legally get our gun permits and carry and conceal and show your children. Standing up for your rights, things of that nature. So don't be afraid to engage in those things. Don't be afraid to go ahead and get your weapons, continuously learn and train. Don't just buy the weapons, but train. Appropriate training is definitely necessary. So these are things that we push. Oh, also, invest. Investing is big. Sit down with someone and learn investing. Learn that stock market, learn the crypto market, learn about the insurance policies, life insurance policies, trust, estates. Tap into that deeper knowledge and stop messing with the things that they're just presenting to you, and see why that everyone is starting to look at the markets. This is money. And a lot of people charge you for this information. It doesn't make sense to me. And that's not a show any of the major groups. This is just like on a local level. No one would sit down and say, hey, just invest. You got to pay someone to tell you to invest.
Definitely. Financial literacy, financial empowerment, business ownership, and not just ownership as far as you being your own boss, but just in some ways having the knowledge. I was telling someone last week, generational wealth is not necessarily about us handing down material things. It's actually the knowledge that will outlive, and most importantly, outmaneuver everything. I love it. That's my guy, man. He goes by the name of Mike D. Follow, stay connected, be in the know. That's what we do, y'all. John Huey Radio, man. Still here, still doing what we do. Y'all keep it locked, man.
Music, interviews, podcasts, and so much more. John Huey Radio, next level.